Germans, that war would have been a one-day war, would have been over. They wiped out the tanks going up to Kiev when they got stuck in the mud. They had a general that decided to go through the mud instead of going up the highway where they were going very nicely. It would have been over. But no, I gave them the javelins. The javelins are unbelievably. We have the greatest weapons in the world. We have to be very careful about giving out the secrets to those weapons. And they're not, you can't copy them. It's a little like NVIDIA. They have a chip. They say you cannot copy it. The complexity is so great you cannot. You know, most things you copy. China's known for it, other countries we do something, and I guess we copy also. Most things you can copy pretty easily. There's a chip that they made, their ultimate chip, and they always have the ultimate chip. And I say, well, why doesn't somebody copy it? Because they can't, the complexity. They can't copy our weapons. We have the greatest weapons in the world, many of them. Those are just 2 or 3 that I mentioned, but you cannot copy them, so we have to be very careful.
Has this arms as part of this plan? Who do you see as taking possession of those weapons that they have? Does that go to the new government?
It's going to be the Board of Peace, mostly. It's going to be run by the Board. This Board of Peace has been it's led by some amazing people. Board of Peace.
On Iran, Mr. President, you said they do have some capabilities left. Should Americans be prepared for these back and forth attacks to continue until Iran simply isn't able of striking back?
They'll get weaker. They'll get a little stronger maybe now, but they'll get weaker, and then they peter out. Yeah, sure, I think so. I mean, it would be foolish to say no. You know, you always have to keep your guard up.
What is the status of talks? Who from the administration is talking to the Iranians?
But they break their word so often. Steve is talking, Jared, we have very good people. JD's involved, very strongly involved. We have great people talking. Marco's involved.
Because they say talks aren't happening.
Very good people. We have the best people. But they'll make a deal. As an example, we'll talk about nuclear. And we'll be in there talking about nuclear for 7 hours. I say, why do you need 7? You can take 10 minutes. You have 5 minutes. You should solve it. But 7 hours, and then they'll go out, and I'll say they discuss nuclear. And they'll go out and they'll say, we never discussed nuclear. And I say, why do they say that? All they do is make me angry. You know, you just make me angry. Any other questions?
Do you believe that you can reach a deal with Iran, given that you talked about how disloyal they are?
I'm losing faith in them because they do lie and they do misrepresent. Well, the other day, the 5 missiles were shot. We knocked them down, but we were in the midst of a negotiation. I mean, I'm waiting for Steve to call me. How's the negotiation going? And instead, I got a call from Pete that they just shot 5 missiles at one of our bases in Jordan. And we have bases in Jordan. Fortunately, our people operated the equipment. It's also very complex to operate. You know, you talk about the equipment. It's you have to be, oftentimes you see, when did you go to school? MIT, Caltech. I mean, you know, they go to schools that are not as normal for the military, to be honest with you. We have unbelievably brilliant people operating that equipment. And when you don't, you know, the equipment, the shots miss, the safety misses, or the accuracy misses. We have unbelievable people. Think of it, we had 111 at one point, a couple of months ago. 111 over a short period of time, missiles were shot at the Abraham Lincoln aircraft carrier. Great, beautiful ship. One of the most beautiful ships to me, design-wise. 111 missiles going out. Out of the 111 missiles, 111 missiles were shot down quite a bit earlier than they got, I mean, long before they got there. They were shot down, it was almost, in a couple of cases, they were shot down almost as they were taking off. It's incredible technology. So you have a ship that costs billions of dollars, and you have missiles heading to it. 111 missiles were shot down, routinely shot down. And I spoke to the people. I like to reward people. I call them up on the president. And they were cool as a cucumber.
Mr. President, on the last weeks of strikes by CENTCOM has said that those were meant to degrade Iran's ability to disrupt the Strait of Hormuz. How many more strikes will it take to significantly?
Well, you never know. Look, I mean, most people would have given up by now. You know, they've got no Navy, they got no Air Force. Most people would have given up. They haven't. So I give them credit for that. I mean, they're known as being tough. They're tough.
Back on Ukraine, what did you tell President Zelensky about the Patriots? Did you explain all that to him?
I did. I spoke about Patriots. I spoke to him about Tomahawks. I spoke to him about everything. I also spoke to him about let's get this war over with. So last month they had 25,000 people. It's averaging about 25,000 people a month die. Mostly soldiers, almost entirely, but you know, missiles are hitting areas also, but mostly soldiers. They had 25,000 soldiers. The month before that, it was 32,000 soldiers. I said, you got to get this war over with. I think he wants to make a deal, and I think Putin wants to make a deal. But there's a lot of dislike, as you probably noticed.
He seems very reluctant to make concessions, President Putin.
Well, nobody wants to make concessions, but they're both going to have to make some concessions. I mean, you got to make a deal. 25,000 young, beautiful people, soldiers, mostly soldiers, are dying a month. It's, I ended 8 wars. That was the war I thought would maybe go first. And it really hasn't. It's gone last. I mean, I ended wars that were, in theory, much more difficult to end. We had a couple that were into the 30-year category. Well, the Congo, look at the Congo and Rwanda. That was our nasty war. And peace, I don't know how long that was going to stay, but we ended India, Pakistan. 11 planes were shot down. That was raging. That was good. I used tariffs. I said, if you're going to go to war, 250% to each of them. And they screamed and yelled and were very angry. They were both angry about it. And a day later they called and they said, we will not go to war. I mean, I ended up, and the Prime Minister of Pakistan said I saved 50 million lives. Because that's 2 nuclear powers, serious nuclear powers. Thank you very much, everybody. Thank you.
Can you rule out that Iran is behind the water attacks? Can you rule out that Iran is behind that cyber attack?
No, I think that Minnesota is behind it. You know who's behind it? Minnesota, because they're grossly incompetent. I think the governor's behind it. I don't think there was an Iranian cyber attack. I think that Minnesota ought to get its act together. It's one of the worst run states. JD will tell you. He found tremendous corruption in Minnesota. Yes, sir. And by the way, just gave me a report. Massive future things having to do with corruption in Minnesota are happening right now. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, guys, you were just watching the 13th convention. He convened his cabinet at Camp David, and we learned a lot there. We're going to dig in just a moment, so let's do our introductions. Hello, everyone. This is Outnumbered. I'm Emily Compagno, and joining us today, Lara Trump, host of My View with Lara Trump, Arthel Neville, Fox News anchor, Rebecca Heinrichs, Hudson Institute senior fellow, and Marcus Lemonis, businessman and Fox News contributor. All right, so let's dive right in, Laura. We covered there in that cabinet meeting, obviously everyone's input from the different secretaries, but also the president then took a ton of questions from the press, covering everything from elections and upcoming midterms and the state of the Democratic Party, also Iran, also a deal with Hamas, also a lot of things going on around that. So what stuck out to you in all of this?
Well, I just continue to think about the transparency we overall get with this president. You know, I was actually looking back as we were waiting for that to wrap at the comparison between the Trump cabinet meetings and the Biden cabinet meetings. First term, Donald Trump held 25 cabinet meetings. The 4 years Joe Biden was in office, anybody have a guess? 9. 9 total. And the difference now is I think he's changed the standard in terms of what the American people expect out of these cabinet meetings. It used to be that there were very kind of brief prepared remarks from the secretaries, from the president himself, and then they ushered the press out. Very different than what you get from President Trump. As you just noted, Emily, he covered a whole range of topics. The press was allowed to be there for the entirety of it. And then he took questions from so many different reporters. And he's just an open book. And I think that this is something the American people deserve. We deserve to hear from these individuals who are making these big decisions for our country, for our people, for our future. We haven't really seen that before. And I think it's very refreshing to the American public that this is really, I hope, the new standard going forward for the cabinet meetings.
And not that it's about me, but I personally am honored and proud to be part of a network that keeps that on.
Yes.
That shows the American public, everyone, because those reports for me from the secretaries, I think are incredibly invaluable. And it just shows to me the tight line between the American public and every single different agency and department that these guys head up, the direct line of communication, the efficiency, and then right up to the president and out to us, thanks to Fox that's broadcasting it. Rebecca, we were talking a lot off air as we saw this about the current state, especially of our relationship with China and China's relationship with Iran and Russia. Can you sort of talk a little bit about what you are seeing in the grand scheme here?
Sure. Well, I mean, first of all, I just want to point out in that meeting, what I found really, really interesting is the president was able to field all of these questions about all of these different foreign crises while also handling our domestic concerns. So while Americans may be concerned about things at home, he was very calm. I mean, a lot of these questions he got from the press about Iran, things, potentially there was the cyber attack against Minnesota that reporters thought maybe came from Iran. And the president said, look, Iran's got worse problems than this. They're really busy and things are not going well, but we're handling it. So he was really calm in explaining, we're handling the problem with Iran. We're handling China. You mentioned, Emily, you and I were talking about how China might be potentially sending weapons to Iran now. And so we really just have this converging of these adversaries, China, Russia, and Iran. And President Trump was very calm in this meeting saying, we're going to handle it while we're handling all these challenges we have domestically.
And part of, I think, the balancing factor that our Gulf allies are seeing is, China's in there a lot, but they are limited. And we are the ones that provide the security assurances there, which they still lean on when the missiles start flying. So it's a balancing effort, I think, for them in terms of the business alliances. How is it affecting your businesses here? What are people looking at?
Well, before we jump into that, Laura's point about the transparency of the administration, if every corporate boardroom in America allowed people to understand what was happening in their business, it would be great. I took away from that Scott Bessent's leadership and his level of transparency on, quite frankly, what matters most to American people, which is what shows up in their wallet, continues to be strong. As it relates to China, China sold $70 million worth of arms in the last week. We know that money came from when the ceasefire was open. Iran was shipping out $450 million a day. They got money back in their coffers. The good news is we waited them out, and now we got this deal. Question's going to be about inspection more than anything else. How do we enforce it, and how do we make sure that it happens?
Yeah, what's on your mind?
Well, of course, no doubt, this president is definitely media savvy, and he loves the camera, as you well know. He knows how to do that quite well. But there was some serious news that he discussed in this particular cabinet meeting, and that is the deal that is in place now with Hamas laying down arms. So a lot of questions. We'll take the win, first of all, but there are a lot of questions that remain, and that is, will Israel sign off? Israel has not always done the right thing and has not always been in lockstep with the President Trump, that is. What is the glue that's going to make this stick? And, will the people of Gaza be able to return home is another question. Will they get reimbursed to rebuild? So a lot of questions. Again, we take the win, but there are questions that do remain in place here. Will they, the people of Gaza, be involved in the new Palestinian government that has been formed, according to the reports from the president and the White House? And then also, I'd like to know, what did Hamas get? What is the money? What made them say, OK, finally, we'll do this? And then also, of course, how will this impact the war with Iran? So, again, it's great to see everyone fielding questions, but there are some answers that are still out there to be satisfied.
As national security analysts, do you want to weigh in on any of this?
Sure. I'm actually not worried about the Israelis' compliance. I'm worried about the fact that the root cause of the problem with Hamas is it's a jihadist death cult that committed the horrible atrocities on October 7th. And so unless UNRWA, this UN organization, is out of this and because they have been caught facilitating Hamas, they need to be out of this peace process. And we need to have people who are committed to the de-radicalization of these people. Otherwise, you're still going to have jihadists there committed to the death of Israelis and Jews. And so we cannot have that. So as President Trump said, this is the very beginning. We still have a lot of questions. It presents an opportunity. But again, the problem, though, is it's the jihadist death cult of those Hamas terrorists. And so there can be nobody that can facilitate.
And the death of us as well.
And the death of Israel, the death of Americans.
Yeah.
And Israel should not be forced to exit the region until those tunnels are destroyed and Hamas is gone and all those jihadists that support them. Israel cannot afford and will not afford to have another October 7th.
Hey everyone, I'm Emily Campagno. Catch me and my co-hosts Harris Faulkner and Kaylee McEnany on Outnumbered every weekday at 12 p.m. Eastern, or set your DVR. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page for daily highlights.